The Federal Reserve did a study. More than a third of Americans can't cover a $400 emergency with cash. More than a third. Let that sink in. Hi, I'm Dave. And I'm terrible with money, but I'm trying to fix it. And what makes that statistic so uncomfortable is that $400 is not some giant disaster number. It's not a roof replacement. It's not a total financial collapse. It's one car repair, one ER visit. That's all it takes. One bad afternoon, one annoying phone call, one expense you did not plan for but absolutely still have to deal with. That's why this number matters so much. It's not testing wealth. It's testing whether your finances can survive normal life. And that's what makes it scary, because most financial disasters do not begin with dramatic movie moments. They begin with normal problems showing up in the wrong month: a tire, a prescription, a doctor visit, a repair you cannot delay. $400 is not huge on paper, but it can be the exact amount that separates inconvenience from debt. And once I understood that, the whole idea of an emergency fund started looking a lot less optional. And for a lot of people, that test is brutal. Because without a buffer, every emergency goes on a credit card. That's the real problem. The emergency itself is stressful enough, but then the financial damage keeps going after the actual problem is over. The repair gets fixed, the bill gets paid, but now the credit card balance is still sitting there, waiting to charge you extra for the privilege of having bad timing. That's how the debt cycle starts. Now, the debt cycle starts with one unexpected $400 bill. You don't have the cash, so you use credit. Then interest kicks in. Next month, you have less breathing room because part of your money is already busy paying for last month's emergency. So when the next surprise shows up, you still don't have a buffer. And suddenly one bad expense has turned into a repeating system. And the worst part is that this cycle makes people feel like they're failing because they can't get ahead, when really they're just constantly recovering from the last hit. That's a very different situation. You are not building momentum when every extra dollar is busy cleaning up yesterday's emergency. You are just financially treading water with interest attached. And that is an exhausting way to live. And that's what people miss when they think emergency funds are boring. They're not boring. They're defensive. They're things standing between one random problem and 3 months of financial cleanup. Without a buffer, small emergencies become expensive emergencies. Not because the original problem was huge, but because the only tool left was debt. And debt is a very expensive way to handle normal life. I think that's why emergency funds matter more than people realize. They don't make your life exciting. They make your life less fragile. You don't look at an emergency fund and think, wow, what a thrilling purchase. But the second something goes wrong, that boring little pile of money becomes the most emotionally attractive thing you own. Stability is not flashy. It is just unbelievably useful the moment life gets weird. And yes, a lot of advice jumps straight to save 3 to 6 months of expenses, which is technically fine advice, but also a fantastic way to overwhelm someone immediately. If you're starting from zero, that number sounds impossible. It sounds like something for future, organized, financially evolved people. So here's the better place to start. You don't need 6 months saved. Start with $1,000. Just $1,000. $1,000 is not everything. It's not a complete emergency plan for every crisis, but it is enough to get you out of the most dangerous zone. It covers a lot of real-world problems. It gives you options. It buys you time. It reduces the odds that every inconvenient surprise instantly becomes debt. And that's a huge shift. Going from 0 to 1,000 is not small. Financially, it's a completely different level of stability. That's why I like the $1,000 target so much. It's specific, it's reachable, and it solves a real problem. A lot of people never start because the goal sounds too big. But if the goal is be financially safe forever, your brain checks out. If the goal is build $1,000 so a flat tire doesn't destroy my month, that feels concrete. That feels like something worth defending. So what does building that actually look like? Honestly, a lot less dramatic than people think. $25 to $50 a week goes a long way. $25 a week is about $100 a month. $50 a week is around $200. At that pace, you can build a $1,000 emergency fund in roughly 5 to 10 months. That is slow enough to feel realistic and fast enough to actually change your situation this year. $25 a week. That's it. In 10 months, you're out of the danger zone. And if you can do 50, even better. What matters most is not speed, it's consistency. Because the emergency fund is not built by one heroic financial moment. It's built by repeating one small boring transfer until boring becomes powerful. And boring money habits are usually the ones that save you. This is also where people get tripped up psychologically. They say, well, what's $25 really going to do? And the answer is a lot more than zero. Zero leaves you exposed. Zero means every problem is urgent. Zero means every bill has to be solved emotionally in the moment. 25 a week means the next problem might still be annoying, but it doesn't automatically become a debt event. That's a huge difference. I had to learn this the hard way because I used to think emergency funds were optional until I made more money, which is exactly the kind of logic that works right up until life decides to invoice you. And life loves invoicing people at the worst possible time. That's the whole point of an emergency. It doesn't wait for financial convenience. It just shows up, asks for money, and ruins your mood. And yes, I have also made the classic mistake of treating my emergency fund like a backup checking account. I raided my emergency fund for a TV once. Twice, actually, which is a deeply embarrassing sentence to say out loud. Because apparently my definition of emergency briefly included wanting better screen quality. And of course, the actual emergency showed up later, but like life was waiting for the joke to land. That was the lesson. Now, if the fund is for everything, it's for nothing. An emergency fund is not for upgrades, deals, travel, holidays, or I've had a long week. It's for actual emergencies, car trouble, medical stuff, urgent repairs, real, unplanned, necessary expenses. The money has to be boring on purpose, or it won't be there when boring suddenly becomes incredibly important. So here's the setup. Separate account. Name it emergency fund. Don't touch it. Open a separate savings account and make the purpose painfully obvious. Then automate $25 on payday. Not because 25 is magical, because automation is. If you wait until the end of the month to save what's left, there usually won't be anything left. But if the transfer happens first, the fund starts growing before your habits even wake up. And that separate account part matters more than people think. Separate account. Name it emergency fund. Don't touch it. If it sits in your normal checking account, your brain will start negotiating with it. It will suddenly develop extremely flexible definitions of necessity. But if the money is out of sight, out of spend, it has a much better chance of surviving long enough to do its job. So the whole thing really comes down to this. 1, a $400 problem is not rare or dramatic. It's normal life arriving at the wrong time. 2, without a buffer, normal life gets financed with debt. 3, you do not need a perfect safety net to start feeling safer. You need your first real layer of protection. And for most people, that starts with $1,000. Build the boring fund. Seriously. It might be the least exciting account you ever opened, but it solves one of the most expensive problems in personal finance. If this felt a little too real, subscribe and hit like. I'll see you in the next one.